Russell Brand has been accused of RSA and emotional abuse during a 7-year period from 2006 to 2013 when he was at the height of his fame, working for BBC Radio 2, Channel 4. He was also starring in Hollywood films. He was also making his own podcast on The Guardian, one of the UK's top comedy personalities, a huge celebrity within England during this period. And a Channel 4 documentary called Dispatches in Plain Sight has been released, which features 4 women with their own personal stories, one a 16-year-old, another claiming that they were forcibly awed at the hands of Russell Brand. I've watched the Dispatches documentary just the once. I wasn't taking notes, so this isn't going to be a complete expose or anything, just a rough intro, I guess. It's suggested that the BBC and perhaps to an extent Channel 4 covered up Russell Brand's antics, which were believed to be known throughout the media industry, certainly throughout the comedy circuit. Allegedly, there were women's groups that would warn each other to avoid certain people, and Russell Brand was listed as one of the people to avoid. Do we know if the allegations are true or not? No, we do not know. We do not know. Russell Brand vehemently denies all of the allegations made against him. In fact, he uploaded a video on YouTube on his extremely successful YouTube channel prior to the Dispatches documentary being released, and in Russell Brand's preemptive denial of all of the allegations video, he claims that he's the victim of a coordinated media attack. And why would that be? Well, perhaps because in recent years, Russell Brand has forged himself a very successful career as a social media, notably YouTube, talking head, expressing a number of political viewpoints, many of which I agree with. I haven't followed him that closely for the last few years, but I think I'm likely to agree with a lot of his viewpoints. So he's been questioning certain topics that governments of the world, the media, don't want us to question, and I applaud that. I am going to say that I've been a long-term Russell Brand fan. I used to listen to his Guardian podcast eagerly. I've seen his very early TV shows where he was getting up to all kinds of mischief, and I found his career to be very interesting. He's clearly an extremely talented person. He's been able to be somewhat of a chameleon. He's morphed from being a TV presenter, a stand-up comedian, a writer, a singer, a movie star, a television presenter. He's had quite an incredible career, which has now led him to being a leading YouTuber. I believe he has 28 million followers across social media, many of which follow his YouTube channel, which he's only started a couple of years ago. He had a different YouTube channel prior to that, The Trues. He's very much free speech orientated, very much about the truth, or so he says. So I've been a long-term fan and supporter of Russell Brand. It's hard for me, it's disappointing for me to be aware of these allegations, but it does remind me, as did the Dispatches documentary, of his previous sexual proclivities. So during his height of fame, probably between the years 2006 to 2013, for several of those years, not necessarily all of them, but for several of those years, he portrayed himself as being an extremely sexual being. He claimed, I believe, to be a sex addict, which is something that some of the women on the Dispatches documentary have claimed. One woman on the Dispatches documentary claimed that he was sleeping with 5 or more women per day, typically fans, in awe of his persona, in awe of his talent, in awe of his fame. Allegedly, he was able to seduce these women consensually, very much like a rock star, and he used to be very close friends with a range of rock stars. Slash from Guns N' Roses, Noel Gallagher from Oasis. He was a rock star. He looked and dressed like a rock star. He portrayed himself as a rock star. He acted like a rock star. He starred in a movie called Rockstar, didn't he? He played a character of a rock star in Get Me From the Greek or whatever that film was. He was admired by many. He rocketed to Hollywood fame, but he was also kicked out of Hollywood very quickly, wasn't he? Quite odd. On the Dispatches documentary, one of the women claimed that she was awed by Russell Brand when he was based in Los Angeles, in Hollywood. So, as I say, I am biased. I've respected Russell Brand for a very long time, although I've not watched him recently. But there are question marks there. I remember that I never liked his stand-up comedy. I watched his DVDs, a few of them, at least a couple of his early ones, and I didn't find them funny. I can't remember the full details, but I think it was much because of the sexual commentary within his comedy. I didn't find it alluring. I didn't find it funny. Some of the clips of his early comedy was shown in the Dispatches documentary, and it kind of reminds me of that. It's kind of creepy. But he's not the only creepy media personality to have such a highly or hyper sexual persona. He dresses very much like Jim Morrison, or he did dress very much like Jim Morrison. Russell Brand, back in the day, was celebrated by the tabloid UK newspapers, notably The Sun. He was given the moniker of Shagger of the Year 3 times in a row because of the quantity of sexual conquests that he would have year after year. So that's something that I find weird. That's something that I find odd, something that I don't necessarily admire. But if it's consensual sex, who am I to argue? The thing is, these allegations in the Dispatches documentary are clearly stating that at least some of the victims are claiming that their sexual encounters, or at least some of their sexual encounters, were far from consensual. If I recall correctly, none of the alleged victims reported Russell Brand to the police. They reported him to his employers, but not to police. Perhaps there are genuine reasons for that. Perhaps some of the victims are being honest when they say that they were too afraid to go to the police and to essentially enter into a legal battle with an incredibly wealthy and powerful man, perhaps with the full support of major broadcasters behind him, the BBC, Channel 4, the Hollywood movie industry. I know I've kind of rambled quite a bit, so I've just told you that there's been accusations of RSA and emotional abuse against Russell Brand. As I say, he's vehemently denied all of the allegations. One of the alleged victims claims that she was groomed by Russell Brand when she was a runner on a TV show at the age of 16. She claims that she was clearly a child. She had the appearance of a child. She dressed like a child. Yet she was seduced by Russell Brand, who was 30 or 31 years of age at the time. I'm going to say that this happened in England. In England, the age of consent is 16. So I think we can certainly argue that some may consider a 31-year-old having sexual relations with a 16-year-old is inappropriate, is creepy. Some may say sick, but we can't say that it's illegal. Not in England. That is perfectly legal in England, where that alleged incident occurred. If I recall correctly, again, I've just watched the documentary the once. I wasn't taking notes, but if I recall correctly, the 16-year-old was certainly very innocent, very childlike, but as far as I understand, she was claiming that their sexual relationship was consensual, led by Russell, the elder person, but still consensual, not R, not SA. It seems a little bit inappropriate in my mind for Russell Brand to be dragged through the mud for something that was consensual. That's my takeaway. Again, I've just watched the documentary the once. Perhaps I'm missing a few details, but that's my takeaway in regards to those allegations from the 16-year-old. Is it creepy? Sure, I can go with that. Is it inappropriate? Yeah, I'll go with that. Is it a misuse of a celebrity's power to have sex with a 16-year-old or to groom a 16-year-old? Yeah, I can agree with those things, but we can't claim that it's illegal if it was consensual. In England, again, the age of consent is 16, so the girl was of age, and whether or not she was led by Russell Brand, as far as I understand, it was consensual, so it seems not entirely fair to drag Russell Brand through the mud in regards to those allegations. However, at least one of the other women that were featured in the Dispatches documentary clearly claims that Russell Brand violently attacked her, pushed her against a wall, and R'd her. Text messages show Russell apologizing for his behavior. Is that enough to convict Russell Brand of R, of SA? I don't know. I would think not. I would think that given that that alleged attack occurred more than a decade ago, I would think it would be incredibly hard to prove in a court of law. But again, we've just seen, is it Daniel Masterson, the guy from that 70s show? He's just been jailed, I believe, for 30 years, 25 years, 30 years for so-called historic R allegations. He was found guilty in a court of law. That hasn't happened to Russell as yet. So what's my takeaway from this situation? My takeaway is that I am very, very disappointed. I don't really know what to think, to be honest. And we never do in these kind of situations. All we have at this point in time are allegations. We don't know if he's guilty, but we do know that he portrays himself, or portrayed past tense, himself as a hypersexual person. In his comedy shows, on his multiple media performances, he used to indicate that he had a dark sexual side to him. He used to indicate that. He used to insinuate such things. Perhaps there was truth to that. In his comedy shows, if you go and watch the DVDs, of course you can stream them nowadays, but in his live performance comedy shows, he would go into the audience and drape himself against the women. One of the articles show him kissing a news reporter, caressing her, Australian TV journalist Liz Hayes. I remember seeing such things and thinking, there is a creepy aspect to this. This is not normal behavior. This is outlandish. I don't like it myself. But at the same time, it appeared consensual. For whatever reason, the women being caressed, the women being kissed, the women being seduced, lapped it up. He was having consensual sex with 5+ women per day, allegedly. So if it's consensual, I mean, can you blame him? So I think this subject is very muddy. I don't think I've done a very good job in discussing it. I wanted to make this video because I have been a fan of Russell Brand for such a long time. I think he is an important figurehead in the media, in the alternative media. I think he is talented. I think he is extremely knowledgeable and extremely intelligent. And I think he has been brave in tackling a number of subjects that go against the media narrative, which is led by the major governments of the world. He's challenged a lot of subjects, which I won't mention. Is it possible that he's the victim of a coordinated media and or government attack? Yeah, I believe that to be possible, but I also believe that it is possible that these allegations may be true. I believe that it could be possible that there was knowledge within the media industry, within the United Kingdom, perhaps within Hollywood, certainly within the comedy circuit, that Russell Brand was overtly hypersexual, inappropriately so, on an ongoing basis. Is he an out-and-out artist? I hope not. Of course, for the victim's sake. Well, you know, I've probably not stated that correctly, but I hope he isn't. Is it possible? Yes, it's possible. So what's my takeaway? I don't really know. I'm lost. I don't want to view him as being guilty. I think it is possible that this is a media attack against him. I do think it is possible that some of the allegations are false, but he's portrayed himself as being a hypersexual, sex-addicted person. And with that, I just feel that perhaps he was giving the world a peek into reality when he joked about such dark things, and perhaps he was protected by the media companies that he worked for. Perhaps he did take advantage of his ability to seduce women that was given to him by his fame, and perhaps on some occasions he indulged his sexual desires too much. I don't know. That's what it boils down to. I don't know. We don't know. So is it possible that he's an artist? Yes, but we don't know that for sure. Hard to say. That's as good as a video as I can make on this topic. Perhaps this has been a bit of a practice run for me. So I'll wrap things up. Take care.